Well, good morning. It's Monday at 10:02. Oh, 2 minutes late. And it's time for relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons. Continuing to work on the Apollo. I have parts, lots of parts, okay, large ones that belong to, well, let's just uncover it like this so you can see what's going on. That belong to the service module. And what I managed to accomplish last week was getting these prepped and also putting together and priming these tiny little things, which are the brackets that hold the reaction control jets. These get attached to these slots on the outside of the service module, and eventually these tiny little rocket nozzles get attached to them. I did some test fitting, so now I have some idea about how these parts all fit together. For example, this is the bottom of, I'll just do this again to remind myself because I actually need to check this. If I'm going to be doing taping in order to do painting, doing taping for painting, which I'm going to do eventually. These, to see how these parts all fit together. This one, these parts just are difficult. Okay. Might as well put the top on too because I want to show you how the door works. And also this gives you an idea about the color scheme that needs to be done. It's actually a good thing that these fit together with very little tolerance because the this is supposed to be all cemented together, okay, before the outside components are put on. And if it doesn't line up right, then the outside isn't going to line up right. And then there will be, yeah, there we go. It'll be kind of a disaster. As you can see, there's a lot of potential for disaster here in the assembly of this. I mean, if you hold it with two hands, it's okay. It's the holding it together with one hand. That's the difficult part. You know, sort of. The reason I'm doing this is I want to show you this section here is where the components, there's an oxygen tank and a hydrogen tank and some fuel cells, and then a big fuel tank that fits here, and then this actually hinges like that. So that it opens. Okay, so if it fits well, that's how it will look. And then this will open like that and reveal the inside. And the reason all of this is important is because this is all gold, painted gold, because in reality they used gold foil as kind of a reflective kind of thing. Now that in itself, the floor and the walls and all of that is straightforward, but then this, which these ridges go inside, okay? So that means that this interior and this ridge here and the inside of this are painted gold, but as is the edge, because the edge is on the inside, right, on the gold part. But then the outside here and here and the top and bottom of these ridges, I'll call them that, get painted kind of a grayish green, which is the color, like the primer color for some of the interior components. Okay, so I just wanted to check where that went so that I could make a decision about what gets painted, what color. Rethink that. So when you look at this, okay, and this is all on the inside, so it's pretty clear that the underside of this needs to be painted gold. Okay, but this ridge causes a problem for me. I mean, if you're looking at it from the inside, which you can't do because you can't get in there, it would make sense that this would be gold because this would show the top. Let's show you how this would work. It would show above the floor. Okay, so it makes sense that everything here that's visible, like the edge of the ridge on top and bottom, would be painted gold. And so when I do the taping for the spray painting, I want to tape right along the top of that ridge because I want that to be painted gold and not the grayish green. There's actually going to be dust. Okay, there's actually going to be 4 colors on all of this, not counting the rocket nozzles. There's the gold color, which is the interior of the detail that shows, at least according to the directions. There will be the gray-green, which is most of the interior of this, and the tops and bottoms, except for the section that's painted gold, of these. It's the top, the bottom. Okay. And then there's this weird cover that goes on here like this. That the rocket nozzle comes through here, but for some reason the designers of this wanted to be able to pull the heat shield away so that you could see the bottoms of these tanks. I'm not sure why, and I have to check out the painting instructions for these, but essentially this is painted the gray-green, this is, and then the detail has to be painted on later, as is the detail on the top of this, basically the conduits that flow, and maybe even some of the junction boxes and wiring. But then is like this, what color should this be painted? Because it's really not the same as the rest of the exterior of this whole service module, actually of the entire model, which is painted a very kind of pearlescent white. Okay, so like the whole outside of this is painted that white color. This doesn't make sense to paint it that white color because it's more like one of the interior components, but I don't really want to paint it the gray-green either. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is painting this. I have another kind of off-white color, a little slightly brownish color. I think I might use it on here just to distinguish it from the rest. This is where the bracket goes for the high gain antenna, and that is a slot for I don't know what. I'm not sure what that's about. Let me look at the instructions and see if there's any hints about what that could be. Mhm. There aren't. There just happens to be this slot that looks like something should cement onto there, but there isn't. Maybe somewhere else in the instructions. It's very odd. It's kind of disfiguring, actually. All lunar excursion module. That'll be building next after this. Or maybe I'll even just skip ahead to the lunar excursion module adapter. The heat shield is removable to show the tanks underneath for a reason. I'm really kind of bothered by that. Because this model usually, the exterior of the model is kind of, it's really pretty nice. It's fairly well detailed. But in this particular case, there's just a slot on the bottom of the piece for no reason at all. Yeah, I'm just looking at this over and over again, trying to figure out why. And I don't know. It isn't really clear why that's there. Don't you think that's? I mean, the rocket nozzle goes here, but why is there? And I know why these are openings here, because they show whatever these are. I think they're like little radiators or something. Go here through these openings, but there's nothing there. I'm really tempted to fill that in before I paint this. I'm not sure. But good news and bad news, as I was looking at all of this and seeing what will show and what won't show, remember those little circles I kept complaining about? Well, there's two more here, right at the top of this panel, that show. Okay. And honestly, there's one here. It's not a very deep one, but this is going to show also. It shows this. Okay. It goes on like this. So this is all painted that gray-green kind of thing, except for, the conduits and stuff that I paint on there, the detail. But that circle shows there's actually a small one up here and here that are hard to see. But these two are really obvious, and I need to get rid of those. Just they can't be allowed to stay there. There's some down at the bottom here too, but those should not be visible. They should be hidden behind this panel. But if I get rid of these, I might just go ahead and sand those out as well. So unfortunately, I wasn't planning to do any sanding. I thought I had caught everything before I primed it, but in this case, no, I failed. So I'm going to do some sanding. I might just get that over with. I'm going to do a little bit of painting. I have to paint the insides of these nozzles. There's 16 of them. Those are going to be painted black. Okay. And then I'm going to be taping these pieces to get them ready for painting. The order in which they will be painted is going to be the gray-green first, because the gray-green is kind of a flat color and is going to be the easiest of all of them to do touching up. And then I'm going to paint the gold. and paint the detail on the bottom and the top bulkheads of the service module. Paint the gold on the inside of this and this and this. Okay, all of that gets painted gold. Then I will, somewhere along the line, paint that kind of off-white color that I'm going to use only on this bit here, just to distinguish it. And the very last thing I'm going to do is paint the white on the outside of the whole thing. So it's just going to take a long time to get this done. And before I paint the white, I'll be attaching these brackets, but not attaching the nozzles because I don't want the nozzles to get painted white. So yeah, part of this is just going to be deciding what gets taped off where, getting the tape in place, masking everything else like this. Okay, this whole inside gets painted that gray-green, but the edges, all of the edges, okay, and the whole outside are going to get painted white, so I need to mask all of the edges really carefully and then cover this so that there's no overspray messing it up. This one's more complicated. I have to, of course, cover the outside, but the inside here is painted gold, and so it's just these little edges that get painted gray-green. So the whole thing gets taped except for the inside of these little edges. So this one had these little circles on it as well, but you can see that I was pretty successful in sanding those out so that they don't show anymore, but not as successful here because I wasn't thinking. I thought, oh, these aren't going to show, but I was very much wrong. These are going to show significantly. I'm moving a little slow today, not only because it's Monday, but because, well, there's two reasons. One is I haven't had any coffee yet, but the other, three reasons. There are three reasons. Among the many reasons why I'm moving a little slowly today are that I'm old and slow. Haven't had my coffee, got to bed kind of late last night. We were playing a game again, and that went for a while. Great fun game. And the allergies exploded. I mean, just blew up in a huge way. So I've been complaining about the allergies before, but now I'm really complaining about them. They got even more significant than they had been earlier. Okay. Yeah. These are the polishing ones. I've got 600 grit and 2,000 grit. 600 grit to do the shaping and 2,000 grit to polish it to keep the surface the same. I probably won't. I don't know if I'm going to even bother repriming this because I really want to get on with the painting. Sky is I really don't want to mess with all of these. There's like 6 of them on here, and they shouldn't show. Okay, they shouldn't show. This should be covered. Why is this here? I don't know. I'm just not going to take a chance. I messed up by not taking care of this issue before I primed it. This should have been done. I should have done this last week when I was sanding off the rest of these circles. So I'm going to do these up here first. And while I'm doing this, I do that a lot. I'm making a lot of noises. I'm finding it annoying myself. You must be finding it annoying. The sandpaper is really quite good, but it loads up quickly with the plastic dust. And in this case, a little bit of primer paint, which means that I sand for a while and then I have to move it on my sophisticated sanding block here. Fortunately, see, the rest of these are raised up, so they sand off pretty quickly and cleanly. Of course, the ones that show the most are indented. And so I have to sand the whole area around them, trying to not deform the whole thing very much. So easier. This is the worst of the 6. The one on the big one isn't very deep. That should come off pretty easily. I could use a coarser grit, in which case this would all go faster. But then I've actually discovered that in the long run, it's not any faster, because the coarser grit leaves all sorts of scratch marks, and those have to be polished out, and that takes longer than if I had just used a finer grit to begin with. Yay. I haven't talked about Tom Terrific in quite a while, have I? So I could talk about Tom Terrific. I don't know, can you see them behind me? There's kind of a silver rectangle up there, right? I have actual original production cells. The hand-painted cells that were used in the production of the Tom Terrific show. I've got 2 of them showing Tom Terrific, and let me look at them. I think, do they both? Yeah, they both also have Mighty Manfred, the Wonder Dog. To get my memory right, I think Tom Terrific was on the Captain Kangaroo show. The episodes were very short. The theme song took up most of the episode, actually. Sing it along with me, or spoken word it, because I'm Tom Terrific, the greatest hero ever. Terrific is the name for me because I'm so clever. That's not a bad rhyme. I mean, as rhymes and theme songs go. I can be what I want to be. That's a nice thought, isn't it? You just be whatever. But in this case, Tom Terrific was meaning it very literally, because he was a shapeshifter, a changeling in D&D terms, kind of like Zoria. Okay. Zoria, our changeling druid in our Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Tom Terrific was kind of like that, in that Tom Terrific was a changeling. So in the theme song, I Can Be What I Want to Be, was, true. at least in the cartoon. I mean, I don't think in real life, but Tom Terrific wasn't real. It's just a cartoon. So within Tom Terrific's universe, it was true. And if you'd like to see, just follow me. You could be a plane up high, a diesel train go roaring by, a bumblebee. Yeah. Starting to be incoherent here. A bumblebee or a tree, it's me. When you're in trouble, I'm there on the double. From Atlantic to Pacific, they know Tom Terrific. So the Atlantic to Pacific thing, strongly implies that Tom Terrific was a purely like North American or at least American continent phenomenon. Could be South American, But I think the implication was North American because, both Canada and the U.S. go from Atlantic to Pacific. But this was a cartoon show on, a kid's cartoon show in the 1950s and 60s. And so that kind of, perspective of the only thing that matters is the country that you're in. It wasn't an international thing. Just put it that way. Just trying to make sure I feel like I got them off. So that's much better. Yeah, I'm sorry for taking up the time to do that, but this piece is going to show above the bulkhead. So if you were looking at the service module, this would be one of the things that would just jump out at you. As being something that was not in the original design of the Apollo service module. I am really tempted to go into my standard rant about why are there little circles all over these pieces. I will spare you that. I'm not going to do that today. No matter how tempting it is to do my standard rant about circles that have no place on a model like this, but that are everywhere. But back to Tom Terrific, yes. So after, Bumblebee or a tree, it's me. When you're in trouble, I'm there on the double. And Tom Terrific could be there on the double means really quickly. And I think that comes, I'm pretty safe in saying that comes from a military term, marching double time, right? So there's just the phrase, there on the double, which means, I guess if you were being really literal about it, would be twice as fast as usual. But in this case, it just means quickly, just sort of generically fast. And then, from Atlantic to Pacific, they know Tom Terrific. So you have to wonder whether Tom Terrific had a narcissistic personality disorder. Claiming to be the greatest hero ever. Terrific is the name for me. And claiming to be known from Atlantic to Pacific. Let's just say there wasn't a lot of expressed modesty going on by Tom Terrific. So I don't know if you'd consider that to be a flaw or not. When we were kids, it was just part of the song. We didn't think about the massive ego trip that was happening there during the theme song. The Mighty Manfred the Wonder Dog was pretty cool because Mighty Manfred the Wonder Dog was always sleeping. A very important companion. So when Tom Terrific needed to change shapes, he put on his thinking cap. He was a pretty low tech thinking cap. It was in a funnel, like a little oil funnel that you would use, at that time, most commonly for putting oil into your engine. But funnels can be used for lots of reasons. But anyway, yes, it was a tin funnel. It was his thinking cap, and he would wear that. That would allow him to change into whatever he wanted to be, because he could be what he wants to be. I don't know if that was an intended lesson for kids or not. You can be what you want to be. Of course, most kids weren't able to turn into bumblebees or trees or anything like that. So that was, a little bit misleading, I would say. Just, for Tom Terrific to say that if the kids watching it were thinking the same thing. Although there was, at a certain age, when like 3 years old or something, there's this kind of weird magical thinking of what would you like to be when you grow up? I don't know. I'd like to be an eagle. Why not? That'd be kind of a fun thing. And it wasn't just, like if you could be a zoo animal, what would you be? It was like, what would you be when you grew up? I don't know. I'd like to grow up and be an eagle or a bear or, something like that. It didn't last very long because then, you realize that you weren't able to change species. You'd have to be, something. You didn't have much of a repertoire, as I recall, when things to be. It's like, what would you like to be? I don't know. Fireman. Everybody knew about firemen at a young age, so you wanted to do that. And of course, not everybody ended up being a firefighter. Back then, it was fireman. I mean, it just was. Let's be honest about it. You're a fireman because of that. Bump here isn't going to disappear. Use a finer sandpaper now. I'm not going to worry about this part because this isn't going to show, hopefully, but here is. So I want this to all be uniform. Scratch marks just gone. That's going to be tolerable anyway. Showing a little bit yet. I'm just rotating this and I can see by different reflectivity in the light that the outline of this circle is still showing a little bit. I'll give that a little bit more sanding, not much, but a little bit. And then work on the larger one, where there's also some circular think Tom Terrific had a nemesis. I think that was the show. My memory is not that clear now from all of it from that time ago. I think it was Krabby Appleton. I think Krabby Appleton was Tom Terrific's kind of nemesis. Okay, well, there's a little bit of a flaw there, but this is going to be flat paint, so that isn't going to show that much. I just need to make sure this is clean before I paint it. I probably will wipe down all of this. This is the one that still has, there isn't much of one, but there is right here. And again, that's in a place that's just going to show way too much. It's right in the center of this. And there's yeah, I'll take that out too. There's kind of a lump there. So in addition to these circles, occasionally I've had lumps. And what the lumps were is when the plastic pulled away from the mold, either some additional plastic was like adhering to it or something or whatever. So there'd be this lump-like projection on it. It was on a couple of pieces. I think it was the hydrogen tank on the inside of this. Of course, right where it shows the most. And that had to be carefully sanded away. But back in the day when I was watching Tom Terrific, if I had a model like this, and I wouldn't have had a model like this because this, well, it wasn't produced then for one thing, so I couldn't have had it. But I didn't get such expensive and complicated models back then. Got like all sorts of cool things, mainly airplanes and jets. I think, at various scales. I did an X-15. I remember that. B-36. I remember building the B-36. That was a fairly large model. It was very small scale, right? But it was still like a foot long. It was a pretty big thing. This is really kind of really done here. So just anticipating problems with this model. One side of this, there's going to be a gap, I'll just say that, with the panel that hinges open. It's not going to fit seamlessly against the other two panels. Why that is, it's, I don't know if you can see it. I can see it when I move it in a certain light, but there's, it's just like it's really rough here. It's like it's not just that there's an indentation, but that the whole thing is not molded very well. I got rid of that circle in the middle. That was important. So I'll show you the issue that I'm going to have, and I'm not entirely sure yet what I'm going to do. This door opens, right? this covers half of the model, like this, right? But then here, between here and here, roughly, this panel goes on because for some reason they weren't able to make one that covered it the entire way. And it's really pretty crappy looking. Okay. The edges don't match up perfectly. That's not a surprise, but there's this big seam there. And before I paint the outside, I think I was wanting to paint the outside of this before I assembled it. And I will. I mean, the outside of this door will be painted separately. But because of this seam, which is going to show, I think I'm going to end up assembling this first. Again, it will be one of those demanding taping kinds of things. And then I'm going to do my best to fill in that seam, maybe even reprime it a little bit before painting all of this. Okay. And just anyway, I think I'm going to end up either making a mess or becoming a real expert at masking tape. I'm not sure which. There's other bits here, that are just part of the model that probably, if this was a real master model, I would, like that tab goes there. Can you see that? There's a tab that's an alignment tab. That should be filled in and sanded down and then painted over so it doesn't show. That could be done after it's assembled like this. And it's possible. I could fill that in and sand it and then just touch it up with the gray-green paint. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. Okay, well, I wasn't expecting to be spending time sanding out little circles, but like I said, I missed them when I did this, when I cleaned it up the first time, and they were in a place where it would be very visible. It was one of those things that was worth doing. So besides doing a lot of taping on these things, which I'll be doing a little bit later, I do have the question of what to do about this slot and why that's there. It just doesn't, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense that it would be there because there's nothing that attaches there. Unless, well, there's the possibility, just a slight possibility that that's an alignment tab. No, that doesn't make any sense because the cone of the rocket nozzle is big. It's like that big. It comes out long. It's large. So I can't see anything that would go there. Put this on again just to test. Because that's definitely the bracket for the antenna. This goes out like this inside and then folds out. And this would actually have to be filled in both so that it didn't show on either side. So I'm going to take time to do this even though it's probably not something I should bother with really, is I'm going to try to make this slot go away. And if I'm just going to fill it with spackling, which would be easy to knock out, I guess, if there's something that goes in there. But as far as I can tell, it's just it's a disfigure. There, looking at the instructions, you can see how the rocket nozzle goes. It's in the box over there. I'd have to reach it. The bracket goes on here. Now this bracket gets painted that off-white that I'm going to use, because this is not the same material as the rest of the exterior. It's kind of an interior piece. So when I paint this, I should remember to go ahead and paint this little bit as well, this little bracket. And you can see those, but I don't see the service module sits on the top of this. Okay, this is an interesting thing. As you can see here, all 4 panels fold down to release the LEM, so that this can come off, turn around, and take the LEM out. The legs for the LEM fold out. It's kind of a nice complicated thing, the lunar excursion module. I'll be working on that next, starting on that sometime in the future. So these are nice. These are hinged in a fairly inobtrusive way, internally hinged. And then the service module sits on the top of that somehow or other. I'm just testing these pieces over and over again, because sometimes they don't make sense. Yeah, so once this is put on, there's a little bit of a ridge there. You can see there is not much of it. Okay, it's like a 1/16 of an inch maybe that extends beyond the bottom of this, and that is what needs to attach to the top of this. And the top of this forms a circle that supposedly is held in place when this is set on after all those hinges come together. So piecing that together is going to be kind of, that'll be a little bit challenging as well. I'm just, use these little symbols. Side of it is supposed to be painted C. Yeah, that's the green color. The outside of it is supposed to be painted white. To match everything else, the rest of the rocket. Although the painting instructions do not make that clear. Okay, well, sometimes, I'm trying to make this model look like a B plus, A minus, maybe a B plus if I can get away with it, at least a solid B. And that slot just isn't supposed to be there. It's really just annoying. So I am going to take some time here I wasn't sure I'd have enough to do to fill things in for today. And I don't know, I might end up a little early anyway, depending on how my breathing goes. So I'm using this. It's not the best filler. The auto body putty is, but it dissolves the plastic and then leaves distortions. So I'm looking around for, I need to squeeze some of this out. Piece of something onto which I can squeeze it that is not my cardboard. And a toothpick. So again, this is a reversible thing. Okay. If it's something that did not have to be done, I can undo it pretty easily. So I'm using this just because it is the thing that sands best. The auto body putty, well, in the combination of things, I've got 3 choices. It doesn't stay pink, by the way. It turns white when it dries, which is how you can tell when it's dry. So I'm not going to be able to sand this until Wednesday. This dries hard enough to sand, but the surface texture turns out to be a little bit different than the plastic. It's a little more porous looking, so you can kind of see it. But what will be visible, even though there's a little rectangle with a slightly different surface texture, it will be a lot different than a gap, like this. So it won't like completely disappear, but it'll be pretty well gone. Like I said, if for some reason I need to have this back, like there was a reason for it to begin with, it would be, it's soft. This material is soft, even softer than the plastic, so it would come out pretty easily. I want it to be above the surface. I could minimize the sanding, but anyway, yeah, I'm not very good at spreading this. I'm not good at drywall patching either, right? I always end up having to do more sanding than, well, but sanding something down isn't that hard, as you have seen over and over and over again on this street. Okay, well, on Wednesday I'll sand this, and again or not. Hopefully when I sand it, I won't knock it out. Hopefully it will hold. Otherwise, I'll have to do it again. There. I can still tape this, though, because that's not in the way of where any tape is going to go. I'm going to do some painting before I do taping. Got these 16 tiny little attitude control rocket nozzles on the ends of toothpicks where I painted them metallic gray. And if I take one off, do this over a paper towel, because if I drop one, I don't want it to bounce and roll. And then I'm going to put them into this container with a lid so that if it gets knocked over, they don't fly away. I take one off here. So you can see I painted the outside of it, right? But the inside is now white because the stick was there. So I'm going to take one off, take each of them off, and paint the inside of that at black. I'm going to use a pretty small brush. I think I can use this brush. I spent some time on Friday sorting brushes out. So as with a lot of these models, it's kind of like, oh, I think I've got it. And then, no, I don't. It's not working. Anyway, yeah. So I need to do a bunch of taping so that I can start painting these colors. I love the instructions on the box top. It's kind of like, you will need model cement to put this together. If you choose to paint it, like you would put this entire thing together and not paint it at all, right? In which case it would have been a whole lot easier and it would have been done by now. After break, just to show you that something has been accomplished, I'm going to try to remember to show you the escape tower, because the escape tower is finished. I actually completed one of the components of this model. I finished this bit up here. And it came out, I think, pretty decent. The pearlescent paint is shinier than the real thing, but I think it looks really nice. And I think the whole model, even though it won't be maybe authentic white, Saturn V white, it will look better than if I just use the pure white. I hope that's the impression it gives anyway, because it's too late now. It has been done. Okay, I want to get the paint in the inside here, but not around the edges. Oh yeah, this is going to take a good long time. Yay. And it's so tiny. Maybe I'll bring the camera down. Let me get one done first. Yeah, this is a terrific thing, continuing on the terrific theme. Things so I can make sure I got the entire inside of it black. There's your tiny little rocket nozzle. Now black on the inside. I'm just going to toss them in here, let them rub up against each other, knock the paint off. So there, I'll bring it down closer. I'm not sure. It's going to be close enough to actually see anything about what's going on. But yeah, you can see the inside is white. And when I'm done, it will be flat black. being really careful because I just want the paint to be in the inside of the cone and not around the rim of it, because the rim of it is painted that metallic. And I stopped being steady there. It depends on, I guess, on what it is, on which it is resting. So I've heard a rumor. I'll just pass this on. I've heard a rumor that we might be needing more minifigs for our Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Not sure. It's just a rumor. Okay, because the DM doesn't let on too terribly much about what's happening ahead of time because, as players, it's supposed to be, we discover it when we discover it, not like a month before it happens. But I've heard a rumor that there may be some more minifigs being produced, which means that for a while at least, it's possible that there will just be Apollo Wednesdays, just like there used to be Submarine Wednesdays, and that there Mondays and Fridays, at least for a bit, who knows how long that will be spent painting minifigs. I haven't painted minifigs in quite a while because we haven't needed them, and so they haven't been produced. Our dungeon tiles, which I'll show later, I like to at least once a week do a promo for our dungeon tiles, are produced on the PLA printers behind me. The minifigs are produced on a rosin printer in a room across the hall, something that can be, as they say, well ventilated. Yeah, that has produced some really cool figures. I can show them to you. At least a couple. There's some here that haven't been put away on shelves. Three down, 13 to go. So I have to keep explaining I don't have a studio here. I've got a workbench with a piece of cardboard on it. Because Dice and Dungeons isn't a painting modeling show. Dice and Dungeons is a Dungeons and Dragons show. And so the studio with really good microphones and multiple cameras and direct and indirect lighting and all of that kind of stuff is out there. There's a real studio around our gameplay table. And this stream was kind of an accident of a spin-off, the Dice of the Dungeons and Dragons show, because we have props, dungeons that we go through. And okay, that's why it was good I have a paper towel here, because this one dropped off the stick and fell onto the paper towel, and it held in place. If it was just the cardboard, were definitely, if it had been the wooden surface of the workbench, it would have bounced off and disappeared into the void of lost model parts. this nozzle is weird. Okay, there was one that where the opening was too big for the stick. It was the only one out of 16, but it's also got an internal ridge on it. The top, the very edge of the nozzle here. It makes it a little bit more challenging to paint than the others had been. Why am I bothering painting the insides of the rocket nozzles a different color than the outside? And, well, the thing is, they had to be painted inside and outside anyway, so it was a two-step process regardless of how I did this, right? Because I had to put them on the sticks in order to paint the outside. But all of the other rocket nozzles, there being 4 of them, 5 of them, 4 on the escape tower, and then the really big one on the service module, are all painted very dark metallic gray on the outside and black on the inside. So that's how this is getting painted. It would have been a little faster if I painted the inside and the outside the same color, because then I wouldn't have to be careful about the edge. But I didn't. It's all part of trying to get a B+ on my model making here. So this tiny little attention to a detail is maybe earning me some extra points. I'm not sure. Maybe. But what's the top of the B scale is what, 92 out of 100? At least that it was when I was growing up. I don't know if grading is the same anymore or not. So a 93 was the bottom of the A scale. I remember that for sure. So 92 was the top of the B scale. And what I'm aiming for here on this model is I'd really like to hit a 90. I don't know if I will or not. I'm pretty sure, given how the escape tower turned out, that I'm at least a solid B. Okay, I'm definitely hitting like a 86 maybe out of 100. I'm not sure it's in the B+ territory. I'm not sure that I'm hitting like 89 or 90, much less a 92, but I'm pretty sure it's a solid B. The submarine, I think, came in as kind of a B- in terms of what would a master modeler painter do. There's some things I just wasn't capable of doing at my skill level. And so that's the way it was. And then there were just some problems with the model itself that I wasn't able to fully correct. It mainly has to do with the alignment of some of the bulkheads and pieces. There's a couple of dials on control panels that I was unhappy with, that I couldn't do any better. It was definitely in the B territory, though. It wasn't C+ or anything. It was like the mid, maybe just slightly below the mid-range of B. At least in my estimation, compared to, someone who really does this for a living, has a steadier hand, sight. I'm making excuses, but it's just, it came out way better. The submarine came out way better than the one I built when I was like in 7th grade. Got rid of all the stupid little mold mark circles. sanded those out before I painted it. Probably should have my head magnifiers on for this to make sure that I'm getting the paint. Anyway, to make sure that there aren't any white spots still showing. I might end up looking at each one of these again, inside and out, before I cement them on. It's always a good thing to do anyway. I'm being real careful with the painting and all, but I'm not being careful in terms of my storage. Ideally, I would set them on like a paper towel somewhere, but I'm more concerned about losing them than I am about having to do paint touch up on them. Losing one of these would be disastrous, really, because there aren't any extras. Paint off the brush here so it starts to build up on the tip. So here's a question for you. Is Tom Terrific the greatest hero ever? We've got, I'm going to limit the competition here, or the discussion, to only fictional heroes. I don't think it's fair, to try to compare Tom Terrific to like real heroes, like people who have saved hundreds of lives or things like that. Okay. That wouldn't be fair. So just fictional heroes. And then of course you can always have a debate about whether a fictional character is really a hero or not. Let's set that aside and do this. So who might we have? We might have Superman, of course. Superman will come to mind as, is Tom Terrific a greater hero than Superman? Batman, Batgirl. Is it Batgirl? It's not Bat. Is it Batwoman? Batgirl, Supergirl. They were always girls, weren't they? Batman and Batgirl, Superman and Supergirl. That was kind of a thing back in the 40s and 50s, I guess. As women were just girls. So we'll just call them Batman and Batwoman. There's the whole Marvel universe and everything, just so many potential contenders to be competition to Tom Terrific. I'm not sure that a character like, say, Silver Surfer or Green Lantern would really make it, just in terms of notoriety and volume of appearances, right? Opportunities to be heroic. I'm not sure that they would have as much opportunity to be in competition to Tom Terrific. Then you've got Godzilla or Gazia, kind of a hero at times, right? Keep Godzilla in the competition. So, was Tom Terrific boasting when he said, "I'm the greatest hero ever," in comparison to, say, Superman or Batman, or maybe even Iron Man? Not very creative naming, come to think of it. Aquaman. It's just an adjective with attached to man. Really, looking back at it, that's the best we could come up with, is this man and that man, and you know. Yeah, that was pretty. I don't know. We didn't think about that at the time. It was just like, oh, that's what they are. There's Aquaman and Superman and Batman and Iron Man. Uh, we could start a whole speculative kind of thing about that. About really, that's the best anybody back then could come up with, is just, oh, what kind of adjective can we attach to man? Then let's make a character. Why didn't we have like aluminium man? That could have been a European import, because they say aluminium there instead of aluminum, as we discovered by looking at the labels, Viejo metallic colors. That spot. So yeah, we should have had aluminium man. We could have had Paisley tie man. There probably was one. I shouldn't joke about that. There probably was Paisley tie man. What have I got in here? Good. There's 10 in here, and there's 6 left. It needs to total 16. The adjectives weren't, I don't know. I mean, Superman, that was like one of the first, so it's just super. I am a Superman. Why not? And then Batman, I guess, wasn't really a bat, but emulated bats, having bat costume and that kind of thing. I guess that kind of made sense. Iron Man was a little bit of a misnomer, wasn't it? Because Iron Man wasn't really made out of iron. I mean, granted, Batman wasn't a bat, but Iron Man had an iron suit, and having an iron suit isn't quite the same as being made of iron. So I suppose that character really should have been called Iron Suit Man. That would have sounded silly. So that wouldn't have caught on. It doesn't sound very, hero-y. I think Aquaman actually made sense. Aquaman really was like watery, right? I'm not sure if that's true. I can just say that because, if anybody catches this on the podcast or on YouTube or something later, then they can add comments about Aquaman wasn't really water, just lived in the water. But, or whether being called Batman or Iron Man was really appropriate when it was just really an iron suit. And Batman was just kind of using the bat as more or less like a logo. Kind of a fashion theme, maybe, in terms of his cape and all. Okay, that one dropped again. I'm glad I put that little paper towel down because it didn't bounce and roll. And that was important. So it's not just a white background so that you can see it better on camera. It's a cushion. It's happened twice now. 2 out of 11 have been dropped and remained findable. Findable is a way of saying not lost. Well, okay. So got off on a little tangent there about naming conventions for heroes, but haven't really addressed the central question of whether or not Tom Terrific was the greatest hero ever. Whether that was just bragging, part of a personality disorder, or whether in fact it might have been true. And then Tom Terrific was simply just, stating what was truly honest about being Tom Terrific. I think if we were really to make a judgment about whether Tom Terrific had a personality disorder or not, we would need to know more than just the theme song. And the theme song is kind of a suggestion, a hint that maybe there's something going on there. That maybe there was an issue that needed to be explored further, but you'd probably really need to delve into the actual episodes of Tom Terrific to see whether or not that suggestion of maybe being pretty unrealistic about oneself was persistent, or whether it was just part of trying to make the rhymes work on a theme song. I think you can. I don't know. I haven't looked. I don't watch that much TV, and I don't do much streaming, so I don't know even where to look. I mean, the first place you'd look is what? Netflix or something, one of the streaming services. I don't know who would even own the rights to Tom Terrific anymore. And whether you can just catch episodes of Tom Terrific or whether you need to watch episodes of the Captain Kangaroo show in order to catch the parts where Tom Terrific was on. I don't know. So I can't help you there. But if you want to make your own judgment about whether or not Tom Terrific was a narcissist, or whether, the claims were valid, you probably need to find some episodes of the show and make your own judgment. I'm just asking the question. Getting close to being done with the painting part of the show. After I'm done painting these, I don't have anything else I can really paint other than the spraying. And I have to keep apologizing that there just isn't any way I can. Unless somebody were to hold a camera up while I was spray painting, because I use spray paint in cans because I don't know how to use an airbrush effectively. I'm not taking the time to learn. I should, but I haven't. Probably won't anytime soon. But even if I did, the airbrush would be in the spray booth over here to the side. And again, the only way anybody could, show that would be if somebody were to hold the camera up while I or someone else was spraying the paint. isn't happening. So what I've got here, this little Ring camera and this little microphone is fine for sanding and taping, not like tape recording, but using masking tape to cover certain parts of things up so that they can be spray painted. Like the priming I've done on these, it all was done off cam. And the final coat of the pearlescent white paint on the escape tower was done off camera. So yeah, that's how it's going to have to be. Okay, well, these little guys are not being perfect, but they're not bad. I think they're going to be okay. The imperfection is an imperfection in the plastic itself. Like the edge of the nozzle isn't perfectly flat or perfectly even. I mean, you can see it here that there's just the plastic just isn't uniform all around the edge of the nozzle. So this is going to be, again, if you've got even a B plus level model in terms of its construction and painting and everything else, it's best displayed under not bright, but kind of, adequate but slightly dim indirect lighting at a decent distance of at least 2 feet, so that the viewer can't get much closer than that. You definitely do not want to give them like a magnifying glass with a built-in light. Do that with my models. I don't know, there are some parts of the submarine though that came out really well, like the galley. The galley came out really, really well, and that one is almost worth letting people look at it with a magnifier. I did a 1960s thing, and I'm sure it wasn't accurate because they probably didn't do this on this submarine, but cabinets back in that time, you could get metal cabinets for your kitchen. Okay, they weren't made out of wood, and they certainly didn't have plastics and stuff, but you could get metal ones, and they were always painted kind of like this porcelain white. In fact, it might have been porcelain coating, and then they were edged in one of the standard colors, usually like aqua blue or red. And so I painted the cabinetry in the galley of the submarine white, multiple coats of white to get it to look right. And then I used a extremely fine tipped felt point pen and put edging on the cabinets. So the cabinets in the galley have red edging, which would be typical of the time in a real kitchen. But anyway, like I said, it might not be authentic for the George Washington nuclear submarine, but it was authentic for the time. I thought it looked pretty good, and it came out pretty decent too. Anyway, the galley came out really well. The faucets, the sinks, the pots and pans that are hanging on the back wall, all sorts of really good detail that looks pretty nice. Kind of unfortunately, the galley is way in the back. Okay, it's behind the tables and things, and kind of hidden behind a wall even. So, at first glance you wouldn't see it, but if you were looking for it, and you turn the model in a certain way and turn your head in a certain way, you'd be able to see the detail. I know it's there though, and I know it came out well. It's the best part of the entire model. Okay. As far as I can tell, and as I said, I'll probably give these a once over to make sure the exterior and the interior paint is still in good shape before I put them on. I've got 16 little nozzles in a sealed container set aside for assembly. Probably, I don't know, it'll be a while before I get to them. Because I said these things need to be painted. There's 4 different colors that need to be spray painted on these things. And the nozzles are going to be attached as the very last bit after everything is assembled, including the brackets on which they attach, and everything is spray painted. The brackets are going to be attached to these little slots here. Here and here, that's 2 of them. There's one on this small piece and one on that. There's the brackets up here. So the brackets get attached. Those are going to get attached before I paint the final coat of white on there. What are we looking at? 11:30 something. Is there any need for 16 little dowels that were used to hold the rocket nozzles to paint the outsides of them? I don't know. Oh, hi. Thanks for joining in. I am making the History Makers Apollo stack. This is a really cool multiple piece model. Hi, thanks for joining in. Please become a follower. Yeah, let me explain this. Why not? I'll take a little bit of time. This Apollo model, when I first saw it online, I didn't even know it existed. Hi, Ola. Thanks for joining in. Oh, since you're here, let me explain the model to our first-time chatter, and then I'm going to show you the part that I've actually finished. Okay, it's all the way from the fairing that attaches to the top of the Saturn V here to the compartment in which the Lunar Excursion Module is located, the service module, the command module, and the escape tower. And the way this is built as a model is that all of these components are separate. So as it shows later on in the assembly instructions, you can actually recreate the entire Apollo mission, all the way from launch to the removal of the escape tower to the separation of the service and command module, the turnaround and dock with the LEM and pull it out of its storage compartment. The LEM itself is in 2 parts, so you can land it on the moon and separate it. In fact, I'll show this to you because it's pretty neat. The thing I'm working on here is the service module. These are pretty much the exterior bits of it. And one of the panels of the service module opens up. It's hinged. And these components, fuel cell, oxygen tanks, hydrogen tanks, these things, fuel tank, these things you can see on the inside. Okay, there's a tiny little helium tank in there that you can barely see. That's the bracket for the high gain antenna, and this is the rocket nozzle for the service module. Anyway, all these pieces come together to form this part of it here. And so I've got the interior components painted, and I need to then paint all of this bit different. It's all different colors. This part here, right, actually the top of it. This is where those platforms with the other little tanks go here, and this is where that big cylindrical fuel tank goes, and then this is inserted into all of these fairings. They gold plated or gold foiled a lot of it. Like a major part of the Lunar Excursion Module is gold, and this interior, a lot of the interior of the service module is as well. So this will actually be painted gold, and those other components installed into it. So anyway, there's a lot of weird detail. Like this ends up being painted kind of primer green, but the conduits need to be detailed. Anyway, I'm going to be taping things after break to get them ready for spray painting. But since Ole's on, I want to show this off. This ta-da, move the camera up, is the completed escape tower. I actually was able to finish it. I'm really shocked. And I was even able to, why is there a little hair there? There we go. Yeah, I even got this painted, and the rocket nozzles, where the exhaust comes out if this thing launches. I think that those came out pretty well. The pearlescent white paint is a little glossier than the real Apollo, but I think it just looks nice. You know, it's shiny nice. And I got, most of the seams taken care of. Those are the rocket nozzles underneath. If this needs to take the, this fits on the top of the command module and it's attached to it at launch. And if something blows up down here, then this is supposed to lift, not everything, just the command module. This lifts the command module of these rockets here. And that shoots off, pulls the command module up to a height high enough. Yeah, I ended up using spray paint on the outside, and like the whole outside of the service module, all of these components, I'm going to be using spray paint as well, because as I keep trying to explain, I got an airbrush like more than a decade ago, and I tried to use it, and it was a disaster. All I did was make one mess after the other. I spent more time cleaning up messes than, anyway, long story. And the last bit was attaching these little doors on the top here, which I think came out okay. They look pretty much like the picture. So I'm pretty happy to say that I've got one of the 4 components of the, 5 if you count the base, okay, finished. And then the service module is coming along. It's posing some challenges, things I didn't expect along the way. Yeah, I know. People who know how to use an airbrush are really, really like them, because you're not stuck with just the colors that you can get in spray paint cans. It's way less expensive in terms of the cost of the paint. So I've been telling myself, what you need to do is just take some time. I don't know how much time, I'll just say some time, take some time and figure out how to use it, because it really would make all of this much faster and less expensive. And just, anyway, there's some real advantages to doing it that, yeah. Oh, so when I'm looking at this, I just have to say this is kind of unfortunate. This is the side that you really want to kind of look at, but I should have oriented it so it was against one of the sides of the lattice where it wasn't cemented together. And I don't think, no, I can't take it off now. Oh, it's one tiny little attention to detail that I wish I had paid attention to. The way this was put together is there were some of these pieces where the struts are molded in, and then there's sides where they were cemented on. And this is the side with the detail on it, right? But it's also the side where these were cemented on, and they're just not perfect. So, oh well. And there's some. I'm just seeing some little dark spots in the paint. That, oh well. Thanks for dropping in, though. I really appreciate it. But anyway, this got done, and it's not perfect. I'm seeing some imperfections. That was one that could have been avoided really easily if I just rotated this 90 degrees when I was cementing it on. But, oh well. That's why this is a B and not an A. Okay. I'm going to be taking a break soon, and then I'm going to come back. And what I'll be doing after break is taping these bits so that I can put the first of the four colors of spray paint onto them. And some of them are pretty easy to tape, like this. Okay. The whole inside of this is painted the same color, so I need to tape the edges. Okay, not the outside, because the edge is going to be painted white, so I need to tape the edges, okay, all around, and then fold the tape over and cover this with a sheet of paper so that overspray doesn't happen. And then the same thing is true of this one. The whole inside is the same color. This one gets trickier. The only part that will be painted the first coat, which is that grayish green, is the bottom of this ridge, not the edge, but just the bottom, and then this little thing here, and the same thing on the top. So everything's going to get masked, edges, 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 outside. Okay, in order to do that. This one is gold on this side and gray-green on this side, so it's, edges again. Tape the edges. Actually, in this case, I want this edge to be gold, so I'm just going to tape the surface. Yeah, I have to tape the edge if I'm going to paint that gold. Paint the edges, that. This little bit doesn't get taped at all. This is gold on both sides. Yeah, and then these bits here, top and bottom, it's painted gold on the inside here, on the inside of these ridges, and so they need to be like taped right along here, and then this part here covered over. It's a little bit tricky, but not bad. And then this is painted gray-green, and the whole thing on this side, and then the same thing on this one. And then this needs to wait because I filled in a gap here. That needs to be sanded down and maybe filled in again. This might take a while because there was a slot here that I didn't want to show. Anyway, I'll be doing some taping later after the break. These guys just sit here and don't get lost. I'm going to want them to just simply not get lost. They'll get dealt with later. Okay, so that's the Apollo I'm working on. The parts come apart, so you can recreate the mission. The instruction manual shows you the steps of recreating the mission. Okay, all the way to landing, takeoff, and successful return to Earth. So it's not just a model, but you can play with it. You can play with it like a toy. Okay, so after break, when we come back and just start taping these, and hopefully, yet today I'll have them taped enough so that I can put the gray-green paint on and just start moving along. Yeah, gray-green first, and then kind of an off-white on the bottom of this, and then gold, and then assembly for the most part, and then after the assembly, masking again and painting the outside. In between there is detail on the top and the bottom that will need to be painted in. Check again, see what color they want to paint these. That's an E or an F. Silver or gold? I think silver. Yeah, all the tanks on the bottom. I'm just saying that the painting instructions leave a lot to be desired. H, light brown. What gets painted H? I think I've ever seen H show up. Now, for some reason, I thought they wanted me to paint the tanks on the bottom brown. But now that I'm really looking at the instructions, I'm seeing that they don't. So there's something somewhere gets painted H. Anyway, yeah, I can't really, yeah, here you can see all the components and how they come apart. So I've got this done and I'm working on this. The next thing I'm going to work on will either be the base here, which is the holding compartment for the lem, or I might just go ahead and start painting doing the lem, depending on how I'm feeling about skill level. Sorry, got me going here. Getting curious about what's painted brown. Even have sitting astronauts inside the command module and standing astronauts. Oh, okay, that's it. The parachute container is painted brown. I don't know why. It should be painted white and red like the parachutes. Okay, well, I'm going to take a break and then I'm going to come back and start doing some taping and just see how far I get. I don't know how far I will get. I might get far enough along so that I can do some spray painting actually tomorrow and come back to this on Wednesday and maybe begin painting the detail here or maybe taping it for the next color. I'm not sure. But I am going to stop at the moment and be back, probably in about a half hour. Thanks for joining in so far, and hope to see you when I get back after break. It did come back. Okay. Well, I'm going to be pretty honest right now that the allergies are worse than I had thought they were. And so I'm not sure how much I'm going to get done. I think I might end up stopping a little bit early today. But to keep things moving, what I'm going to do is tape these guys, okay? Because if I can paint these bulkheads, top and bottom bulkheads, the base coat, at least get that done, then I can spend some time on Wednesday painting the detail, like these tanks and these conduits and things of that sort, and then also do some more taping. So I think these bits, if I can get these done yet before I break, I just, hi, who, yes, I'll do a flip. These are not that difficult. Well, they are going to be difficult. They're not that theoretically problematic. I need to tape off this area here. Okay. This area here, because that's going to get painted gold. And I don't want to paint that over the gray. So, but the rest of this is painted the blue gray and the whole top is. So if I can get these done, Okay, I have a little bit of filing to do. Every time I look at these pieces, every time I go around, there's always another problem that I hadn't seen before. There's just little raised edges here, okay? And these little bumps that shouldn't be there that will keep it from fitting correctly. And this isn't, I'm just going to file them off. It'd be pretty fast. But if I can get, and they're just kind of randomly scattered around the top of this, the rocket nozzle fits in here. This, good grief. Yeah, this is one of the reasons I'm going to be not doing things today is that it's like that. This fits over that. And this has to fit tight against that here. So if this surface has bumps on it, then it will interfere with the correct fitting of the thing above it. And I'll do a flip for blue, and I'm just taping those little triangular areas that are going to be painted gold is just kind of a nuisance. But it has to be done. Otherwise, it'll be messed up later. Anyway, I'm glad I ran my finger over that because that would have been a problem with fit and finish later on. So this is all I'm going to do today is just tape these things and then end a little bit early. Let me get the flip done here. This, not paint, 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 not paint, paint, not paint. 3 and 3. We're doing good randomness lately. Okay, I'm going to use this tape. This edge I tested goes on the inside of the thing that comes down this. Okay, just to show you again there. So I wanted tape so that this ridge are covered. Using this good tape for that. And then as I keep discovering over and over, the masking tape likes to stick to surfaces like my fingers more than it likes to stick to the surface to which I'm attempting to adhere it. Right? It's just, it is that kind of thing. Okay, well, yeah, let's just do it the easy way. Put it over the top of the thing that I'm trying to cover. Okay, and then press it down into the opening. Actually, I want even to go a little bit even further. Down into the opening there. So this is painted gold. This goes over the top. So that'll be painted gold. But then it opens up, and the very edge of this does not need to be painted gold. So I'm not going to cover the edge. No, trim it off near the edge so that it doesn't fold down onto it. Doing here is I'm checking to make sure that it doesn't go too far. I want it to go down and cover this, but I don't want it to go too far in because I want the parts to be covered blue. Yeah, well, taping. This is going to get covered by the piece that goes around it. Taping circles is it's a real kind of a pain, isn't it? So it's okay if here in this case, if the tape goes up onto the rim a little bit because it's not going to show. Yeah, so just to show you again, this goes over that. Right there is going to be painted gold because it'll show on the inside. Pulling this tape off my finger because it's stuck on my finger, but I can also use it to get this tiny little spot there. Tiny little spot that wasn't covered. Okay, well, it's kind of a waste of tape, but I'm just going to use this tape to cover the rest of it. Seeing why I'm another example. Here's another example of my focus is affected by time. So all I'm doing is putting tape on and still sort of failing at that. So I want the tape to come up to the edge, but I don't want it to flop over the edge. So I'll just trim it so it's fairly close. I want the edge, the edge to be painted the grayish blue color, but not the surface here. So as with other edges, I just need to be careful not to wrap it over the edge, right? Right. Much better scissors than the other one I was using. All right, and then there. Nice thing about the taping is that you can make it look really scabby. There, I just kept pushing it down over the edge just by touching it over and over again. Can make it look really scabby like that, but it doesn't matter because it's just tape. It'll disappear. Okay, I want to make sure I got this right. This section in here is going to be painted gold. So after this is painted blue, basically the taping is just the opposite of this. This will be exposed, and I'll be taping around the edge. Okay, the rest of this is behind this bulkhead, this divider, and it being behind it, it is painted a different color. And then this side is completely painted the blue-gray. And then this is just needs to be exactly the same as this, essentially. Well, this isn't going to take too much longer, but as I said, I'm going to be ending early because the allergies just have been catching up with me. And over the break, I had, let's just say, an intense period of nose cleaning. It wasn't all that pleasant. But there we are. So getting these done actually will be not all that bad. I might maybe not accomplishing as much today as I was hoping. But okay, well, that piece was totally wasted. I needed to cover up that little. I'll just use this. That little prong there. To two pieces because I need a piece of tape to cover up here. You know, if I trusted the gold paint a little more than I do, because I really don't trust it that much in terms of coverage, I wouldn't bother taping at all. I would just paint everything the grayish blue color and then paint the gold over that. But I've only tested the gold paint against the white primer, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure it would cover very well. Gonna have to buy another roll of this sooner than later. Okay, well, these two upper and lower bulkheads now can be painted, spray painted. I can do that tomorrow, and it'll be dry enough on Wednesday. And I'm just looking at the detail here, the conduits on here and the tanks and the pipes and things on the other one. And it just leaps out. This is not going to be easy. And there's a lot of opportunity for things to go wrong. So I might end up, that might end up taking most of Wednesday, in addition to taping the rest of it. I don't know. Is there one more thing I can tape? He tapes this one. And I can paint the back of this. And then, depending on how it goes, I might even be able to get some gold paint on. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I'm going to tape this, and then since all the detail is painted on this side, okay, I actually could tape this, and cover it and paint this gold. This gold, I can get the gold on, except for the inside of the door. Okay, I probably wouldn't be able to do that right away, but might be able to do that sooner than later. This one, just going to use the blue tape for this. These edges, just to be masked. Oh, it's always something, right? With these little notches. The inside of the notches should be masked. I'm going to have to do that differently. Look at all the tape buildup. So the reason the inside of the notches need to be masked is that the inside of the notches need to be painted gold. Take a chance and let those be painted the blue, and then when this is all masked, it'll be, when I'm masking the blue, I'll be masking up to this flat, and then those will be painted. So if anything is discolored, it'll be the inside of the hinges. It'll just be way easier to do it that way. I just have to say that, it's way easier for these little notches to be painted. If the blue paint gets on them, the gold will cover it. and it won't. If there's any discoloration, it'll only be in the hinges. I am going to push some tape down into this notch, though. Top and the bottom. I'm a little concerned because those will show differently. Those will show differently than the hinges. It's not, as you can see, it's not that big a deal to do that. It is a big deal. Is the tape doesn't behave, which it didn't. Stick to the surface, not to the hands, right? Can you just do that, please? No, I can't do that. That's not what I do. Stuff's supposed to be stickier than the other stuff. In fact, it is almost always, but no. This is not behaving at all. Let's see if it works any better. This was going okay until I tried to do something, a little bit more delicate. I didn't keep pushing the toothpick over the edge. I should just keep talking about Tom Terrific. At least that was safe and effective. Okay. I didn't make a mess of Tom Terrific, who may or may not have been the greatest hero ever. We never did settle that controversy, did we? No. That will remain controversial well into the next stream, and maybe even after that. But it's always good to know that if you're in trouble, he'll be there on the double. How do I keep making that same error over and over and over? Push up on the toothpick. Okay, just push up on the toothpick, not down. doing this, I realize, of course, that if I get spray paint into these, I can always just scrape it off into those little niches. Before I paint, I will push the tape down one more time to make sure that it's securely attached to the edge but doesn't go over onto the edge. For now, there's that. So just one more piece of tape along here, and then I want to cover up the other side of this. Second, what I mean by that. So there's a couple things here. Okay. One is these spots here and here. I'm going to cover those because the paint will come through, and who knows where it'll go after that. Discovered that with the submarine, that if you've got openings like that, it's important to cover them, because otherwise the paint will spray through and go into who knows where, right? Who knows where. And then the other thing is this, I want this to be covered, because even though it's going to be this side, there could be spray that comes across. Oh, yeah. And actually, since I'm doing this, those little slots there are even bigger than the things I just covered. Those had better be taped over. It would have made sense to tape those before I did all the rest of this taping, wouldn't it? It would have made sense, but that would require me to be sensible about these things and prepare ahead of time and not catch them just when it's almost too late. Do it when it's easier. It's harder. But then it wouldn't be as entertaining to watch as this is, as you watch me struggle to get my fingers into this area with this piece of tape. Safe in the knowledge that I will double check all of this before I actually spray paint all over it. I'm just going to get a piece of paper here, cut it to close to size, and tape it over. Making a tape mess on my very nice piece of cardboard work surface here. There is a Polar Lights model of the Mummy. Polar Lights made a whole series of monsters. They did Frankenstein, they did the Mummy, they did, I think, the Creature from the Black Lagoon. I think they even reissued some of them. So one doesn't have to spend hundreds of dollars on a 1960s original in order to get them. But yes, I could get that. The problem, though, isn't so much finding one of those. Okay, that's not the real issue. The issue is that the viewers of Relaxing Painting might not be terribly interested in seeing a mummy being painted. I might be wrong about that. I can't be sure. And then I would lose my viewership. Whereas I'm sure that they're fascinated with the prospect of this actually ever being done. This didn't work very well at all. But yeah, I mean, I know that they reissued those, so that it's quite possible to find a Mummy and Frankenstein and a bunch of other classic monsters. This is really shoddy. What can I say? At least the part that needed to be masked looks to be fairly well masked. And the part that isn't masked looks to be just a really hideous mess. Yep, I made a mess. Okay, well, what we have here is a fine example of very crappy looking taping. Just really extraordinarily crummy. And then this tape that was supposed to be stuck together there isn't. So why not? Just throw more tape at it. Right? Just keep throwing tape at it. I did that with the submarine. I think there's some places that had like 4 layers of tape on it, as I just found little spots that needed to be retaped where the tape didn't stick. And it worked out okay. Okay, well, all of that just so that I could tape the edges here so I can paint the rest of this blue-green. So what I am planning to do, and I hope I'm actually successful at it, is that I'm going to paint both sides of these, okay, the gray-green metallic primer color, so that on Wednesday I can paint the detail on the bottom and the top of the top and bottom bulkheads of the service module, and so that I can then essentially tape this side, okay, tape this side so that I can paint the other side gold. And then on Thursday, I might actually do some gold painting, okay? And then if I do the gold painting, I'll be able to assemble, theoretically at least, if I get like paint this gold and that gold, I should at least theoretically be able to assemble the interior of the service module, which would be, that would be an accomplishment. I'm not sure I'll get all of that done Friday or not, but it's a possibility. Okay. But by painting these components, even before I get to the rest of it, the gray-green color, I'll have made quite a lot of progress toward that objective. Right? That's an objective toward the goal of finishing the service module toward the mission of, the Apollo mission. Yep. Okay, so there's stuff. I've got stuff here that is, I need to take care of that too. I've got stuff here to work on with paint on Apollo Wednesday. And I decided I'm going to keep these little dowels because even though I could make more, I've got 16 more of those little nozzles to paint for the lunar module. Okay, well, I am going to end early. If I just kept doing more things, some of this is going to be even more delicate than these parts that were, messier than I had hoped. Yeah, I better call it a day. But I've got some really, I can make some pretty good progress between now and Friday by getting this stuff painted, working on the detail here, doing detail painting Wednesday on the top there. And regardless of the status of that, I can mask off all the rest of this and paint this little wedge, paint this wedge area gold, and be able to, hopefully on Friday, actually be able to assemble the interior of the service module, all those bits that are in that other box that go on the inside of this. I could, except for the ones that go in the door. Those not. This one is more complicated to paint. No, this would take me a long time. I was thinking of if I could paint the top and the bottom edges here. Okay, then I could mask those off and paint the rest of this gold and actually get the whole thing done. But this can wait. It's just going to have to wait because I'm barely able to breathe at the moment. And I'll just be snuffling and sounding gross. So I'm going to keep those little dowels because I've got 16 more of those little rocket nozzles to paint, just like I did these. And I don't have to spend a whole lot of time on camera cutting up toothpicks for you. You should put these in a thing somewhere. Here, I've got a little jar, a little pill jar that there an adult can open. Let's stick them in here. That's why you keep all these little jars around, because there's always little things to throw into little jars. Okay, I can go in the toolbox. So this is the paint. This is the paint that's going to be sprayed onto those things that I just taped. So yeah, I am going to take my suffering nasal passages and sinuses and do some antihistamining, I think. And we'll see you at more or less 10 o'clock then on Wednesday, where we will hopefully be seeing a lot of detailed painting. And I'm hoping my hand is nice and steady and I can get those edges nice and clean and pretty and stuff and not need a whole lot of touch-up going back the other way. And I'm hoping then that if I do have to do touch-up, that this paint will work for touching up. So thanks for joining in. I hope that you are... Yeah, anyway, thank you. I'm really getting muddle-headed here. I need to stop now. See you on Wednesday. Thanks so much. Enjoy. Oh, yeah. Become a follower, become a supporter, and I have to put a plug in as I stifle a sneeze. Patreon.com/dice and dungeons. Patreon.com/dice and dungeons. Become a patron and, help me buy more spray paint. Thank you. Bye.